Keanu Reeves has always been known for his quiet, humble nature. Unlike many of his Hollywood peers, he rarely seeks the spotlight for anything other than his work. Fans have watched him star in blockbuster films, deliver iconic performances, and handle fame with a level of grace that seems almost impossible in an industry built on attention. But behind the scenes, there's a part of Keanu's life that few people ever get to see. For years, there have been whispers and subtle hints about a deeply personal decision he made, something that even those closest to him had concerns about. Now, after keeping it private for so long, Keanu has finally decided to speak openly about it. It wasn't an easy choice. Nothing in his life ever seemed simple, yet Keanu has always approached challenges with thoughtfulness and care. Those who know him personally say that he is the kind of person who considers every angle, thinks about how his actions will affect others, and takes responsibility for the outcomes. It's a rare quality, especially in a world where fame often comes with hasty decisions and impulsive moves. So, when news began to circulate that he had made a choice his family initially feared, the public's curiosity grew. People wondered what could be so significant that it worried even those who have always supported him unconditionally. To understand the magnitude of this decision, it's important to know a little about Keanu's life. While he has enjoyed incredible success on screen, his personal life has not been without hardship. He has faced loss, heartbreak, and challenges that would weigh heavily on anyone. Through it all, he has remained a private person, careful about what he shares with the world. There is an authenticity to him that people sense immediately. Unlike many celebrities whose public personas can feel manufactured, Keanu comes across as genuinely present, genuine in his interactions, and quietly aware of the world around him. This makes any personal revelation from him all the more compelling. For years, the media has speculated about aspects of his personal life, trying to piece together fragments of stories and interviews. Fans have wondered about his relationships, his time off-screen, and the values that guide him. But the truth is, Keanu has always been selective about what he shares. He understands the weight of public attention, the way rumors can spiral, and the responsibility that comes with speaking about one's life in a world that often thrives on sensationalism. So when he finally decides to open up about something significant, it's worth paying attention to. The decision he made wasn't just about himself, it affected those around him deeply. Friends and family members who have seen him navigate life with care initially feared the potential consequences. Their concerns weren't about judgment from the outside world, but about his well-being and happiness. Family members have often been described as protective, deeply loyal, and connected to Keanu in ways that the public rarely sees. They worried because, despite his strength and resilience, they knew that this choice could bring emotional challenges. And they wanted to ensure he was prepared for them. It's easy to imagine the conversations that took place behind closed doors. People close to Keanu likely asked questions, expressed their fears, and shared their perspectives. Keanu, in his quiet and thoughtful way, listened to them, weighed their concerns, and considered the impact of his decision not just on himself but on everyone he cares about. This is a side of him that fans rarely see: the careful, reflective thinker who takes the time to understand the bigger picture before making a move. It's a side of him that makes this story so human and relatable. When Keanu finally chose to take action, it wasn't a sudden or impulsive decision. It was the result of months, maybe even years, of reflection. People who have observed him over time describe him as someone who doesn't rush into life-altering choices. He asks himself difficult questions, examines potential outcomes, and seeks balance between personal fulfillment and the responsibility he feels to others. This careful approach is likely why his family had both fear and hope. They could see his determination and understanding, but they also knew the challenges ahead. Even though the world often sees Keanu Reeves as the stoic, almost enigmatic figure on screen, those closest to him describe a person who feels deeply. He is empathetic, kind, and aware of the subtle ways that decisions ripple through life. This sensitivity is part of what makes this story so compelling. Here is a man who has experienced fame, loss, and immense personal growth, standing at a crossroads where his choice matters not just to him but to the people he loves. It is a rare moment of vulnerability from someone who has been admired for decades. The public's fascination with Keanu isn't just because of his films. It's also about the person he seems to be, a person who handles success without arrogance, who gives without expectation, and who maintains a grounded sense of self in an industry that often challenges it. When he speaks about a decision that once worried his family, it gives people a glimpse into the real struggles behind the fame. It reminds fans that even those who appear strong and unshakable have moments of doubt, fear, and careful consideration. There is also a sense of timing in how Keanu chose to share his story. By waiting until he felt ready, he was able to approach the conversation with honesty and clarity, without being rushed by external pressures. It's a choice that reflects his respect for both the audience and his loved ones. He understands the power of words and the impact that revealing personal experiences can have on others. This deliberate approach makes his revelation not just a newsworthy event but also an inspiring example of thoughtful decision-making. While many fans may have speculated endlessly, the reality is far more human than rumors suggested. The choice Keanu made wasn't about drama or attention. It was about living authentically and taking responsibility for the life he wants to lead. It was about acknowledging his own needs while remaining mindful of those around him. This balance between personal courage and empathy is part of what makes Keanu such a compelling figure. In a world where sensational headlines often dominate, this story reminds us that the most interesting decisions are often deeply personal. Thoughtful and quietly powerful, even before Keanu spoke publicly. The atmosphere around him hinted at change. People who interact with him noticed a sense of calm determination, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing one's path. This wasn't a decision made lightly or for public consumption. It was something that had been brewing beneath the surface. A choice that reflects both his character and the values he has lived by. For decades, the anticipation surrounding his revelation was palpable. Fans, media, and even casual observers were eager to understand what had inspired him, what fears he had faced, and how he navigated the concerns of those closest to him. When someone as private as Keanu finally opens up, it's more than a headline. It's an intimate look at the human experience of weighing choices, managing uncertainty, and embracing personal growth. In the end, Part 1 of this story sets the stage for understanding not just what Keanu chose, but why it mattered so much. It is a story of careful thought, empathy, and the courage to act despite fear and uncertainty. It reminds readers and viewers alike that the lives of those in the public eye are complex and layered, and that personal decisions, especially the ones made quietly, away from cameras, can carry immense significance. Keanu Reeves may be known for his roles, his fame, and his achievements, but this story highlights the man behind the public persona. It introduces a moment in his life where the weight of a decision was felt not just by him but by those who love him. It is a deeply human moment, one that resonates with anyone who has faced fear, uncertainty, and the challenge of choosing a path that feels right. As we move into the next part of the story, the focus will shift to the family's concerns, the doubts they held, and how their love and protection shaped the way Keanu approached his choice. But for now, the world waits to hear from the man himself, knowing that when he speaks, it will be with honesty, humility, and a quiet strength that has inspired generations. Keanu Reeves has always been private, but even a man who values solitude and calm cannot completely hide from the concern of those who love him. As the story of his personal decision began to unfold, it became clear that his family had felt a mix of fear, worry, and hope long before he made his choice public. These weren't superficial worries or fleeting doubts. They were the kind that come from deep care, from people who have watched someone they love navigate life's challenges with both strength and vulnerability. For Keanu's family, the thought of him making this particular choice stirred feelings they could not ignore. They worried about the emotional strain it could bring, the obstacles he might face, and the changes it could introduce into their lives. Family members are often the ones who see the quiet struggles behind the public success, and they know that even someone as resilient as Keanu is not immune to difficulty. Their fears were rooted in love, not judgment, and in wanting to protect him from potential harm. Imagine the conversations that must have taken place behind closed doors. In the warmth of family spaces, away from cameras and headlines, they likely voiced their concerns with honesty and care. They probably asked questions, gently challenged assumptions, and encouraged him to weigh the risks carefully. They knew Keanu's mind was sharp and his heart considerate, but they also understood that some challenges, no matter how well prepared, can still be difficult to face. Their concern was not about limiting him, but about ensuring that he was ready for what lay ahead. Keanu, for his part, listened to these concerns. He has always been a thoughtful listener, someone who values the perspective of those he trusts. While many people might feel defensive when challenged by loved ones, Keanu's approach is different. He considers the fears of others, weighs them alongside his own convictions, and searches for a path that honors both his needs and theirs. This careful, reflective process is part of why he is admired not just as an actor, but as a person. Even before he shared his decision publicly, the family had already begun to adjust emotionally. They had to come to terms with the idea that someone they loved deeply was about to take a step that could bring uncertainty. There were likely moments of doubt, quiet nights wondering if it was the right time, and gentle reminders to him to consider every aspect carefully. This tension was natural and human, a reflection of the bond they share and the depth of their care. Family concern often comes from a place of experience. Those closest to Keanu had likely seen the highs and lows of life, understood the pressures of fame, and witnessed the emotional weight that can accompany significant personal choices. Their fears were not about controlling him or judging his decisions. They were about anticipating challenges and preparing him for them. They wanted to ensure that whatever path he chose, he would have the support and understanding needed to navigate it successfully. Keanu's response to this concern shows the depth of his character. He did not dismiss their worries, nor did he make the decision impulsively to prove a point. Instead, he engaged with them openly, explaining his perspective, sharing his reasoning, and demonstrating that he had carefully considered the possible outcomes. This kind of conversation is rare in a world that often values speed and spectacle over thoughtfulness and patience. It reveals a man who approaches life not as a series of headlines, but as a series of human experiences that deserve attention, reflection, and care. The tension between personal desire and family concern is a theme that resonates with many people. Most of us have faced moments when the choices we want to make clash, even slightly, with the expectations or fears of those we love. Keanu's situation magnifies this dynamic because of the public attention surrounding him, but at its core, it is a universal experience. The struggle to honor one's own path while respecting the care of loved ones is something everyone can relate to, and it makes his story more accessible, more human, and more compelling. Family members, in their concern, were also likely aware of the emotional resilience required for this decision. They knew that Keanu had faced hardship before, had endured loss, and had come through moments of profound sadness with grace and strength. Yet, even with that awareness, they understood that this choice carried unique challenges. It was not just about him. It was about how the decision would ripple through their lives, affect relationships, and shape the future. Their fear was mixed with faith, fear that difficulties could arise, and faith that Keanu would navigate them with integrity. At the heart of these family dynamics is love. The conversations, the worries, and even the subtle disagreements are expressions of deep care. Family love is complex. It can be protective, questioning, and sometimes hesitant, but it is never absent. For Keanu, this love was both grounding and motivating. Knowing that people cared so deeply about his well-being may have added weight to the decision, but it also reminded him of the support system that would be there no matter what. This interplay of concern and support is a powerful force, shaping decisions in ways that are often invisible to outsiders. Keanu's ability to navigate this delicate balance speaks to his empathy. He understood the emotional stakes for his family and took them seriously. He approached the situation with patience, giving them time to express their feelings while taking the time to reflect on his own. This was not a moment for haste. It was a moment for listening, understanding, and weighing both heart and mind. In a world that often celebrates immediate action and bold declarations, Keanu's thoughtful approach is quietly remarkable. It is also important to recognize the courage this required. Fear, even when rooted in love, can influence decisions in subtle ways. Choosing to move forward despite understandable worry is never easy. Even for someone as resilient as Keanu, it requires confidence, self-awareness, and the ability to trust in one's own judgment while remaining open to guidance. The courage he displayed was not about bravado, it was about making a deliberate, informed, and empathetic choice. The family's fear also had an unexpected effect. It strengthened their bond. In navigating their concerns and discussing the decision openly, they engaged in a process of connection, reflection, and mutual understanding. It was a reminder that even in moments of uncertainty, family can provide a foundation of support. The very act of expressing fear, asking questions, and sharing feelings helped all involved understand each other more deeply. In this sense, the challenge became an opportunity for growth, empathy, and closer relationships. Even those outside the immediate family could sense the weight of the situation. Friends, colleagues, and those who admire Keanu have long respected his humility and thoughtful nature. Observers could see that this was not a fleeting matter, it was a deeply personal and carefully considered decision. The respect and admiration for him grew not just because of the choice itself, but because of the way he handled the surrounding dynamics with honesty, patience, and sensitivity. It is often said that decisions are easiest when they are made in isolation, away from conflicting opinions and emotions. But the reality is that meaningful decisions rarely happen in a vacuum. Keanu's choice illustrates this beautifully. He recognized the role his family's concern played in shaping his perspective, and he used that awareness to refine his thinking. This approach does not weaken a decision, it strengthens it, adding depth, empathy, and clarity. By the time Keanu was ready to act, he had navigated a journey of conversation, reflection, and emotional honesty. He had listened, he had considered, and he had weighed the consequences. The family, while initially fearful, had the chance to witness his thoughtfulness, his understanding, and his commitment to making the choice responsibly. Their initial fear began to shift, tempered by the realization that Keanu's approach was not reckless, but grounded in careful consideration. For many, this part of the story is relatable in a very human way. We have all faced moments when loved ones worry for us, when their concern clashes with our desire to follow our own path. We have all experienced the push and pull between personal ambition and emotional responsibility. Keanu's story, while set against the backdrop of fame and public attention, reflects a universal truth. Navigating life's important decisions is rarely simple, and the people who care for us are often the ones who make it more complicated, but also richer. In the quiet moments leading up to his choice, Keanu likely reflected not just on the decision itself, but on the love and support that surrounded him. He understood that fear is a natural part of caring, and that the presence of concern does not diminish the validity of a decision. Instead, it invites a deeper engagement with the consequences, a more thoughtful consideration of impact, and a richer appreciation of the relationships that matter most. By acknowledging and respecting his family's fear, Keanu demonstrates a side of humanity that is often overlooked in public figures: the ability to balance independence with connection, courage with empathy, and personal conviction with emotional responsibility. These qualities make his story compelling not because of drama, but because of its authenticity. It reminds us that life's meaningful decisions are rarely solitary. They are shared, negotiated, and experienced in the context of relationships we value. After months of reflection, conversation, and quiet consideration, Keanu Reeves reached the point where he had to make his decision. It wasn't a choice made lightly or under pressure. It was the result of a deep, personal journey, a process that involved examining his values, thinking about the people he loved, and confronting his own fears. For someone like Keanu, who has always been thoughtful and introspective, decisions of this magnitude are never sudden. They are carefully weighed, considered from multiple angles, and approached with both courage and humility. The decision itself was about more than just personal preference or convenience. It touched on a part of his life that mattered deeply to him, a part that had implications not only for his own well-being but also for the people around him. Friends and family had expressed their concern, and he had listened. He had taken the time to consider their fears seriously, to imagine the possible challenges, and to assess whether he was ready to face them. This was a man who understood the weight of responsibility not just professionally, but personally. When Keanu finally made his choice, it was clear that it was guided by authenticity. It wasn't about pleasing anyone, proving a point, or following expectations. It was about doing what felt right in his heart, what aligned with his values, and what allowed him to live honestly with himself and others. In a world where celebrity decisions are often scrutinized or sensationalized, this one stood out because it was private, meaningful, and deeply human. Making the decision required a quiet kind of bravery. Fear is natural when stepping into unknown territory, especially when the people you love have expressed concern. Keanu had to acknowledge that fear, not dismiss it. He had to face the possibility of criticism, misunderstanding, or unforeseen challenges. And yet, despite the uncertainty, he trusted in his judgment, in his preparation, and in the support of those who cared for him. This balance of courage and reflection is what makes his choice compelling, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. One of the most important aspects of the decision was understanding its consequences. Keanu knew that any significant choice affects not only the individual but also the relationships, routines, and emotional landscapes of those around them. He thought carefully about how his actions would ripple through his family, his friends, and even the fans who admired him from afar. For him, the decision wasn't just about himself. It was about acknowledging the interconnectedness of life and the ways in which one person's choice can touch others. The thought process behind the decision was deliberate and thorough. Keanu examined the potential outcomes, both positive and challenging, imagining scenarios and preparing himself for what might come. He asked hard questions. How would this affect those I love? Will I be able to manage the emotional challenges? Is this in line with who I am and who I want to be? These questions were not answered overnight. They were considered over weeks and months. In moments of solitude and reflection, during long walks, quiet mornings, and late nights of contemplation, even in moments of doubt, Keanu demonstrated patience with himself. He allowed himself to feel uncertainty without being paralyzed by it. He accepted that fear is a natural part of decision-making and that it can coexist with courage. This self-awareness, combined with a deep sense of responsibility, gave him the clarity to proceed. It also reassured his family, showing them that while their fears were understandable, his approach was measured, thoughtful, and intentional. The decision itself, once made, brought a sense of relief and clarity. There is a unique kind of calm that comes from acting in alignment with one's values. For Keanu, this was not about public recognition or approval. It was about peace of mind, integrity, and the ability to move forward knowing he had considered everything carefully. This sense of calm is something fans rarely see, but it is a defining aspect of who he is, a man who values inner harmony over external applause. Making this choice also allowed Keanu to reconnect with his sense of purpose. Life in the public eye can often be chaotic, filled with pressures and expectations, but stepping into a decision guided by personal conviction restores a sense of control and agency. It reminds a person that, no matter the external noise, they can act in accordance with their own principles. For Keanu, this was empowering, not in a flashy way, but quietly and profoundly. Even after making the decision, the process was not over. He knew that choices are living things. They evolve as circumstances change, as challenges appear, and as new opportunities arise. He remained attentive, reflective, and open to adjustments, demonstrating flexibility without compromising his core values. This balance of steadfastness and adaptability is a rare quality, one that allows a person to navigate life's uncertainties with resilience and grace. Family and friends, who had watched the entire process with concern and curiosity, began to see the wisdom in Keanu's approach. While they may have initially feared the emotional or practical consequences, they could also recognize his thoughtfulness, his preparation, and his commitment to acting responsibly. Their initial anxiety gradually gave way to support, respect, and quiet pride in the way he handled the situation. This transformation highlights one of the most human aspects of decision-making. Fear and love often coexist, and careful navigation can turn anxiety into understanding. One remarkable thing about this decision was how it reflected Keanu's long-standing values. He has always been a person who prioritizes integrity, empathy, and thoughtful consideration over convenience or fleeting trends. The decision aligned with these values in a way that was consistent with his life story, showing that even in moments of personal challenge, he remains true to himself. This consistency is part of what makes his story inspiring. It is a reminder that acting in accordance with one's principles, even when difficult, can provide clarity and fulfillment. The public may never fully grasp the emotional depth of this decision, but those who care about Keanu intimately understand its significance. Behind the scenes, it was a process filled with reflection, dialogue, and emotional courage. It was about balancing personal desire with the responsibility he felt to others, and about moving forward in a way that honored both himself and the people he loves. This layered approach makes the story feel real, relatable, and deeply human. Even in private, the decision had its challenges. Keanu had to confront internal doubts, consider potential regrets, and anticipate how he would explain or justify the choice if questioned. These are universal experiences. Everyone who has made a major life decision understands the weight of self-reflection, the questioning, and the moments of hesitation. For Keanu, these experiences were intensified by the awareness of public attention. But at their core, they were the same struggles anyone faces when stepping into a meaningful choice. One of the most touching elements of the process was how it brought people closer together. In discussing the decision, Keanu engaged with his family and close friends not defensively, but with openness and care. He invited dialogue, welcomed questions, and shared his thought process honestly. This transparency transformed fear into understanding and created a sense of shared purpose. In a way, the decision became more than just a personal milestone. It became a moment of connection, empathy, and mutual respect. The courage Keanu displayed was subtle but profound. It wasn't about dramatic gestures or public declarations. It was about quiet determination, emotional honesty, and a willingness to face uncertainty head-on. This is a type of courage that resonates deeply with people because it is human and relatable. It reminds audiences that bravery does not always look flashy. Sometimes it is the inner work, the reflection, and the mindful action that define true courage. Keanu's decision also showed the importance of trust. He trusted himself to make the right choice. He trusted his family to understand even if their initial response was fear. And he trusted the process, allowing time, reflection, and dialogue to guide him toward clarity. This trust, both in oneself and in others, is a key ingredient in any significant life decision. Without it, fear can dominate, and opportunities for growth can be missed. Once the decision was made, a new phase began, living with the choice. Keanu had to integrate it into his life, embrace the challenges it presented, and celebrate the opportunities it offered. This integration is often overlooked in stories about decision-making, but it is essential. Making a choice is one thing. Living with it fully, thoughtfully, and responsibly is another. Keanu approached this phase with the same care and mindfulness that characterized the decision itself. The impact of the choice was not just personal, it was relational. Family and friends experienced a sense of relief and admiration. They saw that Keanu had listened, reflected, and acted with integrity. Their fears, while initially intense, were transformed by witnessing his commitment and thoughtfulness. It was a reminder that meaningful decisions often have ripple effects, creating understanding, strengthening bonds, and inspiring confidence in others. For the public, the eventual revelation of Keanu's decision offered a glimpse into the real person behind the celebrity image. It was a reminder that life decisions, even for those in the spotlight, are deeply human. They involve fear, reflection, dialogue, courage, and empathy. After much reflection and preparation, the moment finally arrived for Keanu Reeves to break his silence publicly. For someone who has long valued privacy, this was not an easy step. Sharing personal decisions with the world, even when they feel right and necessary, can be daunting. The weight of public expectation, the possibility of misunderstanding, and the fear of judgment all lingered in the background. Yet Keanu approached this moment with the same quiet thoughtfulness that has defined him throughout his life and career. The setting was unassuming but meaningful. There were no extravagant stages or flashing cameras, only a calm environment where he could speak honestly and be heard. This choice reflected his character. He wanted the focus to be on the words, on the experience he was sharing rather than on spectacle or drama. From the very beginning, it was clear that this revelation was intended to be authentic and personal. He wanted people to understand not just the decision itself, but the reasoning, the reflection, and the emotions behind it. When he spoke, the tone was calm, measured, and sincere. Keanu did not rush through explanations or rely on rehearsed statements. Instead, he took the time to articulate his thoughts, allowing his audience to grasp both the seriousness of the decision and the care with which it had been made. Listeners could sense his honesty, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing he had done everything possible to prepare, and the humility that made the revelation feel grounded and human, one of the most striking elements of his public sharing was how he acknowledged the concerns of his family. He did not ignore or dismiss the fears they had expressed. Instead, he spoke about them openly, showing empathy for their perspective and gratitude for their care. By doing so, he highlighted a crucial truth about personal choices. They are rarely made in isolation. The people we love often shape, influence, and support the paths we take. And recognizing that as an act of humility and respect, Keanu also took the time to explain his motivations. He spoke about the values and principles that guided him, the thought process that led him to the decision, and the lessons he had learned along the way. Listeners could sense that this was not a spontaneous revelation. It was the culmination of careful reflection, conversations with loved ones, and honest self-examination. This depth made the story relatable. It reminded people that meaningful choices often involve struggle, reflection, and emotional courage. The reaction of the audience was immediate and heartfelt. Fans, long accustomed to Keanu's quiet presence, were moved not only by the revelation itself, but by the way he shared it. There was no hint of self-promotion or attention-seeking, only a man conveying his truth with clarity and honesty. Comments and responses poured in from people who admired not just the decision but the integrity and empathy with which it had been made public. For many, it was inspiring to see someone so thoughtful navigate a personal milestone in a world that often rewards haste and spectacle. What stood out most was how human Keanu seemed in that moment. Despite decades of fame, despite being the subject of endless media scrutiny, he allowed himself to be vulnerable. He acknowledged fear, uncertainty, and doubt without letting them dominate the story. He expressed pride, hope, and responsibility without arrogance. This balance of emotion and composure made the revelation feel real and accessible, a rare glimpse into the inner life of someone often seen as untouchable or distant. He also addressed the challenges that came with the decision. Life is rarely simple, and even choices made with care carry consequences and complexities. Keanu spoke about the obstacles he anticipated, the practical considerations he had weighed, and the emotional effort required to move forward confidently. By acknowledging these realities, he demonstrated not only honesty but also resilience, the kind that comes from facing life directly rather than avoiding discomfort. Keanu's approach to sharing this part of his life was also marked by patience. He did not expect everyone to immediately understand or agree. Instead, he presented his perspective calmly, giving people the space to absorb, reflect, and respond. This patience reflects a rare kind of communication, one that values understanding over applause, empathy over instant reaction. It is the kind of approach that allows a story to resonate deeply and endure over time. Family members, too, were affected by this public revelation. While they had been supportive throughout his decision-making process, seeing him share it openly added a new dimension. They witnessed his courage, his thoughtfulness, and his willingness to be honest despite vulnerability. Their pride and respect for him grew. as did the recognition that their initial fear had been met with careful preparation, emotional intelligence, and personal integrity. It was a moment of shared understanding and affirmation for everyone involved. Keanu also emphasized the broader meaning of the decision. He spoke about responsibility, empathy, and the importance of living authentically. For him, the choice was not just personal, it was a reflection of values he has long held. It was about making decisions that honor oneself while considering the impact on others. This perspective resonated with many who watched and listened, reinforcing the idea that integrity and thoughtfulness are timeless qualities, relevant in every context of life. The way he shared his story demonstrated humility as well. He did not position himself as a role model or a hero. He did not seek validation or applause. Instead, he spoke as someone who had faced a challenge, reflected deeply, and acted responsibly. By framing his experience in this way, he made it relatable. It reminded audiences that meaningful decisions are rarely about glory, they are about honesty, courage, and personal responsibility. Another notable aspect of this public revelation was how it blended emotion and clarity. Keanu allowed himself to express genuine feelings of fear, hope, and anticipation. Yet he balanced these emotions with clear explanations and thoughtful reasoning. This combination made the story engaging and credible. People could connect emotionally while also appreciating the logical process behind his choice. It was a masterclass in how to share personal experiences in a way that is both authentic and inspiring through this public moment. Keanu also demonstrated the value of reflection. The decision had been carefully considered over time, and he used the opportunity to explain why patience and thoughtful deliberation matter. In a culture that often celebrates speed and spontaneity, his example offers a lesson. Taking time to think deeply, listen to loved ones, and weigh options leads to stronger, more confident outcomes. This lesson, though subtle, resonates beyond the specific context of his decision. His words also highlighted the interconnectedness of life. Decisions do not happen in isolation. They affect family, friends, and even broader communities. By acknowledging the network of relationships that influenced and supported him, Keanu reminded the audience of the human dimension of choice. Decisions are not just personal, they are shared, experienced, and understood collectively. Even if the choice ultimately rests with one individual, for many fans, seeing Keanu speak openly about his decision was deeply moving. It provided insight into the character and values that have guided him for decades. It revealed a person who is reflective, empathetic, and courageous in ways that are easy to admire and difficult to replicate. It also reminded audiences that vulnerability and strength often coexist. Being honest about fear, uncertainty, and personal struggle does not diminish a person. It can, in fact, enhance the respect and connection others feel toward them, even beyond immediate reactions. The way Keanu revealed his decision left a lasting impression. It wasn't a fleeting moment of publicity. It was a story that encouraged reflection, empathy, and understanding. People began to see that meaningful choices are not always dramatic or sensational. They are often quiet, thoughtful, and guided by integrity. His example offered a model for handling life's difficult decisions with care, patience, and courage. Another remarkable element of this revelation was the balance between transparency and respect for privacy. While Keanu shared his story, he did so without exposing unnecessary details or inviting scrutiny into private matters. This approach demonstrated respect for himself, his family, and his audience. It showed that openness does not require oversharing, and that it is possible to be honest and relatable while still maintaining boundaries. His words were not only about the decision itself, but also about the lessons learned along the way. He spoke about the importance of reflection, the value of empathy, and the strength that comes from listening to loved ones. He highlighted the significance of courage in facing fear, patience in navigating uncertainty, and humility in acknowledging the influence of others. These lessons, embedded in the narrative of his personal choice, added depth and meaning to the revelation. Throughout the sharing, Keanu maintained a calm and composed demeanor. There was no need for theatrics. The power of his message lay in its sincerity. Listeners could sense that every word was considered, every emotion genuine, and every perspective valued. This quiet authenticity is rare in public life and is one of the reasons people have admired him for so long. As he spoke, the story of his decision became more than just an account of a personal choice, it became a reflection on life itself. It explored